Omar. He was always Omar, and it was really annoying because Omar did like no damage, yet he was so good with this character, and he could win. And then Ian would go, I'm going to be this character, and then get really frustrated because he couldn't do anything. He'd be like, you know what, I'm switching. He was that one. I'm going to switch characters. And then I was just always Pikachu. I was never Raichu or the tall one with the big head that was in the Pikachu family. I was always just Pikachu. I was the lightning rat.
Yeah.
And I had a ton of fun. And then they would always pick stages that, like, you know, they fell apart or something like that. So I would kill myself many, many times because I'm like, what happened to the floor? And then I'm dead.
There's a game that I just picked up, not recently, but I picked up the Super Nintendo small system. I bought one.
Okay.
And I was like, oh man, this is going to be awesome. You know how many games, like original awesome games they had for the Super Nintendo? And I'm like, what the heck do they have on there? Yoshi World.
Okay.
What was the other ones? It was
64, Super Mario 64.
Wait,
Donkey Kong?
Yoshi World?
No, it wasn't Yoshi
both
World.
of those games I played on the 64, the Yoshi one and the Donkey Kong one.
You played as a giant gorilla.
And I was awesome. No, I was usually the girl. I was usually the girl gorilla. I don't remember her name. Anyway.
Donkey Kong Country. It's on there.
Uh-huh.
Now, the big game that sold it for me, because I love these games, Street Fighter. Street Fighter was an awesome series. It always had great characters.
Yeah, I never got into those. That style of game.
I was never into the fighting style besides Super Smash Bros.
I love those.
Well, right, but that's not the... It's
that was
different.
Yeah.
I did own one or two of those types of games, and they could be fun, but I was never good enough at, like I'd try and put in the combos, and it didn't work.
Yeah.
And so then I just got really frustrated. But I have never thrown a controller.
Well, that's good.
I threw a drumstick through a window once, but I've never thrown a controller.
And my question is, are there, and similar topic, are there games you go back and you pick up and play, though they're from your childhood? These are like 10 years old games.
Super Mario Brothers. I love that game. I could play that game for days, maybe even months or years.
Did you ever just run up that staircase that was never ending, thinking maybe one time you'll get to the top? I literally, for like 20 minutes
and you go through the door and it just starts all over again.
Yeah. I was like, I'm like, I'm going to get to the top. This has to be something. It has to be something. And somewhere, some game developer was laughing his head off at the idiot in New Milford, Pennsylvania, running circles trying to get up that staircase in that game.
They're like, Sam's a jerk, let's play with his mind.
Which, if it was a game from today, if you did that for long enough, you would get to the top and there'd be something really secret up there that's kind of stupid. Back then, they just didn't care about that. They just wanted to make you look like an idiot.
Yeah.
For me, I think I might say the one game I like to pick up and play is Star Wars Battlefront 2. The original Star Wars Battlefront 2.
No. You mean the new one.
No, not the new one.
Yeah.
God.
Definitely the new one.
The original one.
You're such a nerd.
I love picking up and playing that. I have that on Steam. I wish they would just remaster it for the PlayStation 4 and Xbox One. I would buy it. I'd pay $60 for it even. I want that game. I love that game. That's a game that's
267.
I think you're mistaken.
It's 400 years old.
It's a game that's 13 years old.
It's older than me.
It's still not just me. I know, Sam, you love playing it.
I hated it. One of the worst games I've ever played in my life.
Yeah, that's why you play it all the time.
I don't play it all the time.
One thing I do
play
wish
it all the time.
I do wish they would do
it was an awesome game for its time. NBA Jams.
I didn't play basketball games. I loved Age of Empires 2. That was my game when I was a kid. Age of Empires 2, which is an RTS. I didn't understand the concepts of an RTS. I still won because I played on easy, but I didn't really understand the concepts of an RTS. You know, gaining resources, building your base, building.
I would just use cheat codes and say,
exactly.
Give all this, give this, and then I have all the resources.
I have all the resources, and I can buy anything I want to.
There was a Star Wars version of that, Galactic Battlegrounds. There was a code for a Death Star, so I'd hover above the enemy's base, because wherever you were, the Death Star was right in the middle. It was so slow.
Yeah.
So I would just go over the enemy's base and say, give Death Star. Boom, Death Star. Boom! Blows up the base, and that's how I would win my games.
All right. Same. In Age of Empires 2.
They built a Death Star.
I built a Death Star.
The first thing that ever came out with like a cheat code for me was Game Boy.
You up, down, B, B, A, Z, you know?
Well, yeah. They would give you the like a button combination, and then they actually came out with something called the Game Shark.
I remember the Game Shark.
remember
I
that?
wanted one so bad because I had the Game Boy
Yeah.
Advance SP. You know,
Yeah.
it flipped open. I was so cool. I wasn't cool at all, but
Yeah.
I flipped it open.
They had
I played the
they had
heck
Game
out of
Boy,
Crash
Game
Bash
Boy Color,
Bandicoot.
and then the Game Boy
Yep.
Flip. Yeah.
Oh,
I
yes.
played the
Advanced.
heck out of Crash Bash Bandicoot on that thing.
Yeah.
And the Star
Which is a
Wars,
classic game,
the
by the
Star Wars Episode 3 game
Yeah.
on that thing. It was a great game.
30+ years old for
Yeah,
Crash Bandicoot.
Yeah. Crash was a great game, except for when
Still out.
you're trying to jump and stuff like that, and you miss and you fall. And
Yeah.
They just remastered some of his games for
Yeah.
PlayStation
Yeah.
4.
and
Oh, well, for all platforms.
Oh, did they?
Yeah.
but no, I remember that the Game Shark. I wanted one. I never got one, but I did want one.
You could, with the Game Shark, you can go into any particular game that was popular
And they
at
had
that
the cheat
time.
codes for it.
And they had every single cheat code for it, and it would click right onto the top of your...
And if I'm not mistaken, you can plug the Game Shark into your computer and get new ones.
Yes.
You could update your Game Shark,
Yeah.
basically like a GPS. You know, you could update your Game Shark and get new. I agree, Stephanie. You're back on the payroll.
I agree as well.
Wait,
Crash
when
is
are
the
we
bomb.
getting paid?
You're not,
Now,
Oh, yeah, you're not getting
and
paid.
none of us are.
You're part-time.
Thank
She is.
now,
I collect all the money. I'm sorry.
now, my next question is a challenging one. And for all your listeners, please tune in and help us.
And please tell me you want to hear me rap.
No, don't.
Never.
Which, if any, games from the current generation, PlayStation 4, Xbox One, PC still counts, but I don't know when you would start that generation. Maybe
Never.
I think 2012, 2013.
Maybe
Which-
5 minutes from now.
Which games do you think go down as classic games? But like how we're describing it, these are
No
games
Man's
when
Sky.
these are games that you will in 10 years want to go pick up and play again
No Man's Sky.
because of the nostalgia factor, because of the memories, because of the enjoyment of the game.
No Man's Sky.
I disagree.
You know,
Are there any? And I don't think there are.
I'm playing through God of War, the newest one, and it's good. I'm trying to think of any other game that I have. You know what might go down is Shadow of War, or Shadow of Mordor, I'll say, just because of how innovative it was for its time and what it did with the whole Nemesis system and stuff like that. I think that game has a chance because of that. The gameplay is really good in it, but it's not as much because of its gameplay as much as it is because of what it did for the gaming industry with this whole new concept. And then Shadow of War, which I know, I love the Lord of the Rings, so I understand that it plays very loosely with the lore of the Lord of the Rings. So did the first one, to be, but the game itself is really great, and I think they have a chance because of what they did for the gaming industry.
I don't think it's as popular a game as you think it is.
I'm not saying it's this amazingly popular game, but it doesn't necessarily have to be an amazingly popular game to go down as a classic.
Well, and that's true. That's true.
In fact, I would
actually
say in the
agree with
movie world, a lot of the movies that we call quote classics are not amazingly popular. It's because they have a cult following that refuses to admit that those games or those movies have faults in them.
Yeah.
And this is that same thing in the video game world. A cult following that refuses to admit they have faults. Not the cult following the games. The cult following is also Candy Crush.
Now, hang on. That
Well,
brings up
it is a
point.
game.
Yeah.
It's a video game.
Okay.
And
Do
it's
we-
widely popular.
Yeah.
Yes,
millions.
Yes,
millions
but there
of-
have been
No.
it's the same. Yes, I get it. It's with candy, but there are millions of those types
Here's
of
the
games.
problem with mobile gaming.
But when you talk about that particular game, you talk about Candy Crush.
Queasy
You
Cupcake.
don't talk about
But
color
here's the thing,
crush
though.
or color swap.
Here's the
or-
thing, though. Right now, you talk about Candy Crush, but what happens in 3 years when they release
Nobody
the next
talks
mobile
about
game?
Candy Crush right now. You
No.
talked about Candy Crush 3 years ago, and now the only reason it's talked about is because somebody brings it up, and you're like, oh, that game is still out there.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying I don't think mobile gaming will die. Don't get me wrong.
no.
No, but it
But
doesn't.
the-
It's not going to have a
mobile gaming
classic
has a less of a lifetime than console
Lifespan.
games, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Because
of the drugs.
there's
Lots
constantly
of drugs.
Video
There's,
game
there's
drugs.
more and more mobile games that come out all the time, and I love mobile games. But in a couple of years, the
True.
mobile games I'm playing now, they're going to be
Minesweeper.
discontinued because they made new ones.
Minesweeper's going to go down.
The
as a
game
classic.
that no one knew how to
I
play.
knew how to play it. I knew how to play it when I was 10 years old because
You're a genius.
I had an aunt that showed me. I played it like everybody else, randomly clicking,
Yeah.
until she said, well, that's not how you play, and she explained
I
it to me.
figured
And
it
went,
out, too.
this game is incredibly simple.
Yeah.
And hard.
It's hard, but it's incredibly simple. The game I never got was Free Cell. Remember, 'cause you had the 4 games. You had Solitaire, you had Free Cell, you had Minesweeper, and you had Space
I don't know
Ping,
if I
or
ever
not
played
Ping
Free
Pong.
Cell.
Space, what the heck's it called? The
Space thing.
It's not ping pong, but what the heck's it called?
Pinball.
Pinball. Pinball. Those were the 4 games you had on every Windows computer.
Oh, yeah.
And Free Cell, I never understood.
Actually, with the older systems, you even got a Wolfenstein.
I have no idea what that is.
Wolfenstein was
Except for the new
game.
games.
Well, they actually just came out with the new Wolfenstein on
a couple
the
years
computers.
back.
But that was a huge game for the game system.
Mm-hmm.
I think maybe a game that has a chance is The Last of Us.
Yeah.
And I mentioned that The Last of Us came out with the PS3 and was remastered for PlayStation 4.
Yeah.
So it doesn't count.
It doesn't quite count, but I think that's the closest I can.
Your parameters, you made them.
That's true.
I don't know.
I'm just saying that's the closest one I can think of that I know that is probably going to go down as a classic game. I don't think there's any recent Call of Duties.
No.
Or
he said duty.
I don't think there are any. And some of the older Call of Duty games are, because Modern Warfare. They just remastered that a few years ago because people want to go back and play it. Are there any other games?
Well, there's classic games that have been out for probably
3 or 4 minutes.
30 years that still come up today. Like Super Mario Brothers has been around forever, and they've redone it, they've remastered it, they've
Paper Thin World or whatever.
They come out with what was the latest
a new Mario
one?
every time.
They actually killed off Luigi.
Well, let's say what about a Fallout 4?
Yeah.
What are the younger brothers are going to play now?
I don't know.
Do you think a game maybe a Fallout 4 or a Call of Duty World War II is like that kind of game in 30 years that they're still so popular? Not just the franchise, but this one particular game that you want to go back and play it because this one particular game was so amazing.
No, there's not a chance for those games. It's just because they're not amazing.
No.
Even, quite frankly, The Last of Us, while it has a great story, it's not going to go down as a classic because the game itself is not great. The story of it is really incredible and stuff like that, but the gameplay itself is pretty much just like any other non-run-and-gun zombie game. It's not a run-and-gun zombie game. It takes strategy and stuff like that. But it's not...
The gameplay wasn't anything new.
Spectacular.
It was just the story.
I don't think you're ever going to... No, I won't say ever. It'll be very difficult to have classics anymore because everything has been done. And to be a classic, it's got to either change the way that everything's being done.
True.
Or be an original. And you're not going to have that anymore.
See, I also think the problem is companies are putting out games so quickly now.
Yeah.
We've already talked about they're not putting out finished products, but they're putting them out so quickly. You have yearly releases and yearly franchises like Madden, like Call of Duty, like Battlefield. But you have EA, they put out 2 Star Wars Battlefront games. Those are crap. But
and
guess what?
I know we were joking about it, but to be frank, No Man's Sky was the last game that I can think of that had a chance of being a new
and they decided to take a
trendsetter.
crap on.
Oh yeah,
right.
Yeah.
It had that game had a chance to be a classic because of how big it could be.
But
and
it was
what
a poo-poo game.
I agree.
They
but
did nothing with it.
But I'm saying that was the last game I can think of that really had a chance. Because even though the ideas of it weren't new, open world, that sort of thing, what it was trying to do, what they promised it would do, was so innovative to people.
Here's what I thought, and I'm gonna say this before we wrap up. I know we only have a couple more minutes left, but I think the game that should have been revolutionary that never came out was when they did the first Call of Duty. When they came out with switching up different producers of the game. They went with Treyarch, and then they went with Activision, or whatever. Infinity Ward, I'm sorry.
They had Activision at one point.
Activision is the company that owns it.
Oh, okay, true.
And then they went with 2 different producers.
Right.
But they went with 2 different zombie styles for that game. And I think they really missed a boat on setting a zombie-like game such as, Dead Island, and they came out with Dead Rising, and then they came out with...
But those games don't have they have a small cult following, but I have played those games, and they're not fun, to be frank. They're boring
not fun
because
games.
you do the same thing over and over and over and over again.
Exactly.
In that you're just constantly...
And
killing zombies, which is great. I love the zombies maps because if you just want to do a mindless thing... Great.
And I think the biggest thing that will kill these games from being classics is actually multiplayer. Yeah. Because with the online multiplayer now, after a year or two, or especially with yearly releases, when everyone's
Sure.
bought the new game, people aren't playing it anymore.
That's
if
true.
If you go pick up Battlefield 1, and